My husband left me because I couldn't give him children. But in a grove of forgotten souls, I found 5 girls whose hearts were as shattered as my own. After an unthinkable tragedy, 5 sisters were left with nothing. Their own family saw them not as children to cherish, but as burdens to discard. They were thrown away, labeled cursed, and left to fade away in a grove of forgotten souls. But one woman, a weaver shunned for her own empty womb, heard their silent cries.
We are strong together, and we will face this with courage.
Until 20 years later, when the 5 sisters did the one thing that made the entire town bow in shame and disbelief. Welcome to Tales by Khomen, where old African stories are reborn. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so the fire of our stories keeps burning bright. Sit close and let the story begin. For 12 long years, Adaeze's womb had remained as silent as the dry season, and the sound of that silence was louder than any drumbeat. Her husband, Chijioke, a man whose pride was as tall as the Irako tree, could bear the quiet no more. One evening, as the fireflies began their dance, he stood at her doorway, his shadow long and cold. Adaeze, he said, his voice like grinding stone. A hut without children is a forest without life. You are a field that yields no harvest. I must go to a woman who can give me sons. And just like that, he was gone, taking his stool and his hunting spear, leaving Adaeze alone with the crushing weight of her empty home. Adaeze was a weaver, her fingers known for creating tapestries so beautiful they were said to capture the very spirit of the ancestors. But now her loom stood still, covered in a fine layer of dust. The villagers who once praised her skill, now whispered behind her back. They called her Adaeze, the barren one, and their words were like thorns in her skin. She would walk to the river to wash, and the other women would turn their backs, afraid her misfortune was a sickness that could spread. Adaeze felt her heart hardening, turning into a small, heavy seed of sorrow. She wondered if the sun god Chukwu had forgotten her name. She stopped going to the village square, stopped singing while she worked. The only sound in her hut was the whisper of the wind through the cracks, a lonely sound that seemed to say, "Nothing, nothing, nothing." Driven by a loneliness so deep it ached in her bones, Adaeze left her village and walked to the edge of the great jungle. There, hidden by thick elephant grass and the weeping branches of an ancient willow tree, was a place spoken of only in hushed tones, the Grove of Forgotten Souls. It was not an orphanage built by men, but a refuge run by an old woman named Mama Adaeze, whose face was a map of wrinkles and whose eyes held the kindness of 1,000 moons. It was said she was a spirit who took in children the world had thrown away. As Adaeze stepped into the clearing, the air grew cool and still. She saw children with eyes too old for their faces, but her gaze was drawn to one corner, beneath the shade of a flame tree. There, huddled together like a single, trembling heart, were 5 sisters. The oldest, Ifeoma, who could not have been more than 9 reigns old, held a baby girl tightly against her chest. Her arms were thin but her grip was fierce. Beside her, Neka, about 7 reigns old, tried to braid a blade of grass, her chin held high even as her lips trembled. Huddled at their feet were the twins, Hugo and Obiageli, 5 reigns old, their identical faces pressed together, sharing a single silent tear. And in Ifeoma's arms was the baby, Adana, whose big dark eyes were not bright with mischief, but held a deep, profound sadness that seemed to understand all the pain in the world. They were a small island of loss in the middle of the grove. Mama Adaeze shuffled over to Adaeze, her walking stick tapping a soft rhythm on the earth. "They are the Adaeze sisters," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. Their parents, good potters from a village near the great river, were taking their wares to the market when their cart fell into a ravine. The pot, which held their family spirit, shattered. Their extended family came, but they did not see children. They saw only more mouths to feed. They called them broken pots that cannot hold water, and left them here. Mama Adaeze sighed, a sound full of the weight of the world. They have been here for many moons. Everyone wants a single, strong son. No one wants 5 sisters. To take one is to break the chain. So they remain unclaimed. Adaeze felt a pull in her chest, a feeling as strong as the current of the mighty Niger River. She looked at Ifeoma, trying to be a mother when she was still a child. She saw the silent understanding in the twins' shared gaze. She saw the brave, failing smile of Neka. But it was baby Adana's eyes that truly called to her. In their deep, liquid darkness, Adaeze did not see uselessness. She saw a story waiting to be told, a song waiting to be sung. A warmth spread through her, melting the icy seed of sorrow in her heart. She turned to Mama Adaeze, her own eyes now blazing with a new fire. "I will take them," Adaeze declared. All 5. Mama and Annie gasped. Daughter, you are a woman alone. Your hands are for weaving, not for farming enough yams for so many. It is too heavy a burden. But Adaeze stood tall. I will be their mother. The walk back to Adaeze's hut was a quiet one. The 5 girls followed her like silent, scared little ghosts. When they arrived, the hut that had felt so empty now felt frighteningly small. Adaeze prepared a simple meal of yam porridge, but the girls were too afraid to eat much. When the moon rose, a giant silver pearl in the sky, they all huddled together on Adaeze's one sleeping mat. The twins shivered, though the night was warm. Ifeoma watched Adaeze's every move, her body a shield for her sisters. In the dark, Adaeze felt a small, hesitant hand touch her arm. It was Nneka. Mama Adaeze, she whispered, the title sending a jolt through Adaeze's body. Are you really going to let us stay? Or will you send us back when the food runs out? The question hung in the air, fragile as a butterfly's wing. Adaeze turned and gathered all 5 of them into her arms the best she could. She could feel their tiny hearts beating like captured birds. She smelled the scent of the forest and fear in their hair. She began to hum, a soft, old lullaby her own mother had sung to her, a song about the moon watching over the children of the earth. Then she spoke, her voice a steady promise. Listen to me, my daughters, she said. This is your home. This mat is your mat. This hut is your hut. I am your mother. I will not send you back. I will keep you forever and for always, until the rivers run backwards and the baobab tree walks. You are mine and I am yours. For the first time since their parents had died, the 5 sisters, wrapped in the safety of Adaeze's arms, slept a deep and dreamless sleep. The news spread through Uzuma village like a bushfire. Adaeze has brought 5 children to her hut. 5 girls. Has the sun sickness touched her mind? The village women, led by the proud and jealous Ijeoma, whose own sons were lazy and rude, came to Adaeze's compound. Adaeze? Ijeoma called out, her hands on her hips. We heard you brought home scraps from the Forgotten Grove. Do you think mothering is like collecting firewood? The more, the better? These children have bad luck clinging to them like shadows. They will bring a curse upon your household and upon our whole village. The other women murmured in agreement, their eyes hard. Adaeze stood in her doorway, her 5 daughters peeking from behind her skirt. Her heart was pounding, but she remembered her promise. She looked Ijeoma straight in the eye. Ijeoma, what I see before me are not scraps, she said, her voice clear and strong. I see 5 precious seeds, and I will be the water and the sun that helps them grow. If you are afraid of their shadow, then it is your own fire that is too small. The women gasped at her boldness and left, muttering curses. But Adaeze did not waver. She turned to her daughters and smiled. Do not listen to them, she said. Their words are dry leaves, they have no water for our roots. Our family is a mighty tree and we are just beginning to grow. Life became a difficult, beautiful dance. Adaeze wove day and night, her fingers flying across the loom to create more tapestries to sell at the distant market. The money was little. They ate what they could grow in their small garden, greens, peppers, and a few yams. Their clothes were patched and handed down. Ifeoma's dress became Nneka's, and then was cut down for the twins. They had one reading book, a gift from a traveling preacher, and at night, by the light of a palm oil lamp, Adaeze would teach them all the letters and numbers she knew. But amidst the struggle there was joy. The hut was no longer silent. It was filled with the sound of the twins' laughter as they chased lizards, with Nneka's songs as she helped pound the yam, and with baby Adaeze's gurgles. Ifeoma learned to help with the cooking, her serious face focused on getting the fire just right. They were a team. Adaeze taught them that a family is like a basket, many strands woven together, creating something strong and beautiful. They had nothing, but in each other they had everything. The love in the hut was a tangible thing, as warm and nourishing as the noonday sun. One day, Adaeze came home from the market to find Ifeoma arranging little stones in the dust. What are you doing, my first daughter? Adaeze asked. Ifeoma looked up, her brow furrowed. I am trading, Mama, she said seriously. This stone is a chicken. These 5 small ones are eggs. If I trade the chicken, I get more eggs. But if I keep the chicken, I get more eggs later. I am trying to find the best trade. Adaeze was astonished. She saw a rare gift, a mind that understood the language of value. The next market day, instead of buying a new pot, Adaeze bought a small empty calabash. She gave it to Ifeoma. This is not a gourd for water, Adaeze said. This is your talking calabash. It will help you listen to the language of trade. She gave Ifeoma a few coins. This is your seed money. Plant it wisely. Ifeoma, with the gravity of a great chief, took the calabash and the coins. She started by buying a single bunch of bananas, selling them piece by piece for a small profit. She then bought 2 bunches, then 3. Her talking calabash became her money box, and it began to whisper secrets of commerce to her, secrets only she could understand. While Ifeoma's spirit was for the market, Neka's was for the wild, open field. While the other girls played with dolls, Neka would take a small, round fruit and kick it around the compound, darting between the chickens and the washing pot with a speed that was breathtaking. The village boys who played football with a leather ball laughed at her. "Football is for boys," they shouted. "Go and cook." But Adaeze saw the fire in Neka's eyes. She saw the way her feet moved with the grace and power of a young antelope. One evening she found Neka behind the hut, crying silently, her precious fruit ball split in 2. Adaeze did not scold her. She took Neka's hands, which were scratched and dirty. "Neka," she said softly, "the antelope does not ask the jungle for permission to run. It simply runs and the jungle makes way. Your spirit is the spirit of the antelope. Do not let anyone cage it." The next day, Adaeze used the money from one of her best tapestries to buy a real, stitched leather football from a traveling trader. When she gave it to Neka, the girl's face lit up like the sunrise. The beautiful game now had a proper vessel for her magnificent spirit. The twins, Hugo and Adaeze, were 2 halves of a single soul. Hugo was quiet and gentle. When a baby bird fell from its nest, it was Hugo who stayed up all night, feeding it drops of water with a feather until it was strong enough to fly. Adaeze, however, was fiercely curious. She would find a dead beetle and spend hours looking at its wings and legs, trying to understand how it was put together. She begged Adaeze to tell her about the herbs she used when they were sick. Adaeze saw 2 different paths to the same destination: healing. For Hugo, she started a small herb garden. "This is dogonyaro for fever," she would say, "and this is enchanwood to make a strong tea." Hugo learned the gentle art of nurturing life. For Adaeze traded a tapestry for an old, tattered book about the human body from a missionary. The pages were falling out, but to Adaeze, it was a treasure map. She devoured the pictures of the heart, the lungs, and the bones. While Hugo healed with her hands and her heart, Adaeze hungered to heal with knowledge. Together, they were the perfect medicine. Baby Adaeze was growing. And with her growth, a miracle unfolded. She had 2 voices. The first was a singing voice. When she sang, the village would grow quiet. The birds would stop chirping to listen. It was a voice of pure, liquid silver that could make the hardest heart feel soft and make the sad heart feel hope. But her second voice was for arguing. She could argue that the sky was green and the grass was blue with such cleverness and logic that even the village elders would scratch their heads and laugh. "This one will be a great chief or a great troublemaker," they would say. Adaeze saw both gifts as sacred. For the singer, she saved for months to buy a small, thumb piano called a kalimba. When Adaeze's fingers touched the metal tines, they created music that seemed to come from the stars themselves. For the arguer, Adaeze did a brave thing. She took Adaeze to the village square where the elders settled disputes. "Listen," she whispered to her youngest. "Listen to the words they use. The right word is a key that can unlock any door. The wrong word is a lock that can shut it forever." Adaeze listened, her big eyes taking in everything, learning the power of language to both heal and to defend. A great drought fell upon the land of Uzuma. The sun was a merciless eye in the sky. The rivers dried up. The crops in the garden withered and died. Hunger, a cruel and unwelcome visitor, entered Adaeze's hut. The girls' ribs began to show and their laughter grew faint. The villagers, desperate and afraid, listened to Ifeoma's poisonous words. "It is Adaeze's cursed children," she declared. "They have angered the earth goddess. We must drive them out to bring the rain." One night, a mob gathered outside Adaeze's hut, their faces lit by burning torches. "Send them away, Adaeze, or we will burn the hut with you inside," Ifeoma screamed. Adaeze stood before her door, her 5 daughters clinging to her. She was terrified, but she would not show it. Just as the mob surged forward, a small figure stepped out from behind her. It was Adaeze. She opened her mouth and instead of a song, she began to speak. Her voice, small but clear, rang out in the night. She spoke of family. She spoke of love. She spoke of how her mother had taken them in when no one else would. She argued with the wisdom of an elder, her words weaving a protective spell around their home. The mob, shamed by the words of a child, began to disperse, their torches dipping low. The drought broke, but the poverty remained. A solution came from an unexpected place. A football competition was announced in the big city a day's journey away. The prize was a bag of silver coins. Nneka, now a fierce and fast young woman, begged to enter. "It is only for boys' teams, foolish girl." Ijeoma scoffed. But Adaeze looked at Nneka, at the determined fire in her eyes, and she sold her last fine tapestry to pay the entry fee for a small, makeshift team of boys from a neighboring village who agreed to let her play. The day of the tournament, Nneka played like a woman possessed. She was a whirlwind, her feet a blur. She danced around the boys as if they were trees, scoring goal after goal. The crowd went from laughing to cheering, then to chanting her name. When she scored the winning goal, the stadium erupted. A scout from a great club in a faraway country was there. He offered her a contract on the spot. When Nneka came home and poured the bag of silver coins and the contract into her mother's lap, Adaeze wept. It was the first drop of rain after a long, long drought. The first seed had burst into bloom. With the money from Nneka's prize, Ifeoma's talking calabash finally spoke in full sentences. She didn't just buy and sell. She saw that the city needed the strong, beautiful baskets her mother wove. She saw that their village had a special clay that made the best pots. She became a trader, connecting the village to the city. She started with a small stall, then a shop, then 3 shops. She hired the very villagers who had once mocked her family. She called her business the Golden Calabash, and it became known for fair deals and good quality. Ifeoma, the serious little girl who traded stones, was now a young business queen, and she used her wealth to lift her entire family and her entire village out of poverty. Inspired by their sisters, the twins pursued their dreams. Hugo, with her gentle hands and knowledge of herbs, went to the city and trained to be a nurse. Her touch was so kind that patients said they felt better the moment she walked into the room. Obiageli, with her brilliant, curious mind, won a scholarship to a great school and became a doctor. She was especially fascinated with the heart, mending the very thing that held life. They ended up working in the same big hospital. Dr. Obiageli diagnosing the illness and prescribing the medicine, and Nurse Hugo administering the care with boundless compassion. They were the most famous healing team in the whole country. Adana, the baby with the sad eyes, now had 2 powerful careers. Her voice as a gospel singer filled great concert halls, and her records were played on radios across the land. Her songs brought comfort and joy to millions. But with her other voice, she stood in courtrooms. She became a lawyer who fought for those who had no voice, the poor, the forgotten, children like she once was. She was undefeated, her arguments as beautiful and powerful as her songs. She became known as the Singing Advocate, a woman who used words to both heal souls and defend justice. Years had passed. The 5 sisters were now 5 powerful, successful women. Their fame had spread far and wide. For Adaeze's 60th birthday, the 5 queens revealed their greatest gift. On a hill overlooking the village, they had built a magnificent house. It was not a hut, but a palace made of the finest materials, with a roof that shone in the sun, surrounded by a garden of the most beautiful flowers and a pool as blue as the sky. They called it Neoma, which means good mother. They led their mother, who still wore her simple clothes, to the palace. Ifeoma spoke for all of them. "Mama," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave us everything when you had nothing but a heart full of love. You gave us a name when we were nameless. You are our sun and our rain. This palace is but a small piece of our gratitude. The world will now see the palace of the woman who raised 5 queens." Adaeze, the queen mother, now old and gray but with eyes that still sparkled, lived in her palace surrounded by her daughters, her sons-in-law, and her many, many grandchildren. Her story was told everywhere. When young mothers would ask her, "Neoma, what is the secret? How did you do it? You had no money, no husband, no power." Adaeze would smile a deep, knowing smile. She would take their hands and say, "My dear, you are looking for a big, complicated magic. But the greatest magic is simple. Love is the only seed you need. Plant it in the heart of a child. Water it with kindness. Shield it from the weeds of unkind words. And that child, I promise you, will grow into a tree so strong and so tall, it will touch the sky and its fruit will feed generations. I did not give them things. I gave them my whole heart. And in return they gave me the world." And in the evenings, the sound of Adana's voice singing, mixed with the laughter of the children, would rise from the palace on the hill, a song of love that would never ever end. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with your friends and family so they don't miss out. Your support means everything. See you in the next video.